A very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Cairo Local Time, our program that brings you all the latest news and events happening here inside Egypt. My name is Angie Mayer and I'll be joining you for today's edition. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the upcoming parliamentary elections and, of course, their importance to democratic life in Egypt. We'll also be shedding light on the new role of the House of Representatives in the upcoming period and the importance, of course, of the Egyptians' participation in this very important vote. This and much more, but first a short break and we'll bring you a quick look at the news making the headlines. Do stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and starting with a look at the news making the headlines, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi told military college graduates on Tuesday that they have a duty to sacrifice their lives and blood for the homeland, which is one of, if not the most honorable mission ever. In a speech at the graduation ceremony for students of military colleges and institutes at the Military Academy in Cairo, President el-Sisi thanked their families of the new military graduates for raising and supporting their sons to protect the security and safety of the nation. The graduates from the Military Academy, the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, the Military Technical College, the Air Defense Academy and the Technical Institute for Military Forces were joined by Police Academy graduates. All took part in the event. Now, the Minister of Defense, Mohammad Zaki, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and the former interim President, Adli Mansour, and the heads of the main branches of the armed forces, as well as a number of ministers and state officials were attending the ceremony. During the ceremony, students of the military academies presented tactical drills to showcase their fighting skills. They also stood in a formation in the shape of a number 47 to mark the 47th anniversary of the Egyptian victory against Israel in the 6th of October war. And bringing you more news, the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, accompanied by Egypt's Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Dr. Khaled Al-Anani, and the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Mustafa Waziri, inspected the excavation work of the Egyptian Archaeological Mission working in Saqqara Archaeological Area. We have more details in this story.
Egypt will announce a new discovery in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, south of Cairo, in the coming weeks. A statement by the cabinet said that the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inspected in the early hours of Monday the ongoing excavation by the Egyptian Archaeological Mission in the area. The mission unearthed new burial shafts with colorful and intact coffins over 2,500 years old and wooden-colored and gilded statues. Madbouli climbed down one of the shafts accompanied by the Tourism and Antiquities Minister Khaled Al-Anani and Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities Mustafa Waziri to inspect the discovery and unearthed coffins. The statement said that the discovery will be announced in the coming weeks at a press conference in Saqqara. The visit comes a few weeks after a collection of 59 intact, well-preserved 26th dynasty coffins were unearthed in Saqqara necropolis. The coffins maintain their original colors. Mustafa Waziri, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, said the preliminary studies show that the coffins belong to 26th dynasty priests, top officials and elites. There are mummies in the majority of the coffins. Madbouli was keen to shoot a video while he was inside the well, in which he thanked the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities and stated that he takes pride in the unique Egyptian civilization. And he also thanked the Prime Minister for the great support the ministry receives from the government, which has led to all the discoveries being made by Egyptian hands. The Minister of Tourism and Antiquities noted that 5 Egyptian museums will be inaugurated before the end of 2020.
And for more news, the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, has asked the Health Minister during a cabinet meeting to review the state's efforts to provide all forms of contraception to women free of charge in order to curb the rate of population growth. Madbouli also called for establishing a program to employ women in governorates with high population growth, as work could be a strong incentive for them to implement family planning. Prime Minister also instructed officials to accelerate efforts to prepare legislation to promote family planning, noting he would communicate with Parliament to discuss the relevant draft laws as soon as possible. According to the Cabinet statement, the state's family planning vision involves legislation to determine the minimum age of marriage, criminalize marriage of female minors, and toughen penalties against child marriage and child labor. And for more news, the Minister of State for Immigration, Nabila Makram, has called on Egyptians abroad to participate in the upcoming parliamentary elections. She also announced the ministry has established an operation room to follow up on the election process abroad. The parliament election ballot papers have become available for Egyptians abroad on the National Elections Authority website to print out in order to be sent via mail to embassies and diplomatic missions in different countries during the voting days that will start on Wednesday and last till the 23rd. That's the details.
The first phase of the parliamentary elections kicked off Monday by allowing voters to print out their ballot papers online on the National Election Authority website in order to resend them to the embassies and diplomatic missions in different countries during the voting days. Envelopes of the polling cards would be sent to the embassy via mail at the embassy's address on the condition that the voters attach copies of their IDs or passports to the voting cards. Minister of Immigration and Egyptian Affairs Abroad, Nabila Makram, conducted several online meetings with Egyptians abroad to explain all needed steps for casting ballots in Egypt's parliamentary elections 2020. The ministry also released several explanatory videos needed for voting and answer all frequent questions related to voting abroad. All expats who registered their data on National Election Authority NEA website from September 27th till October 10th will easily vote in the House of Election. However, those who failed to register earlier will not be able to vote or register on the website to get a ballot paper. The electoral silence of the House elections started on Sunday ahead of the Parliament elections. During the electoral silence period, all candidates are prohibited from participating in any form of electoral advertising in order to allow voters to choose freely. A total of 63 million Egyptians are eligible to cast their votes in the coming parliament elections due to convene on October 21st till 25th. The NEA executive body will reallocate voters to the polling stations of the electoral constituencies after increasing the number of the stations nationwide to limit the spread of the new coronavirus pandemic. According to the timeline of the parliament elections, the election's first phase will be held for Egyptians abroad from 21st to 23rd October and locally from 24th to 25th of October, as its result be announced November 1st. The runoff elections will be held abroad from 21st till 23rd of November and locally on November 23rd and 24th. For the second phase of elections was set to be held abroad from 4th to 6th of November and locally on 7th and 8th of November, and its results to be announced on November 15th. The runoff elections for the second phase will be conducted abroad on 5th to 7th of December and locally on 7th and 8th of December. The final results of Egypt's House elections to be formally announced by the National Elections Authority on December 14th. A total of 4,600 individuals, candidates and 8 parties lists were accepted to run in the parliamentary elections.
And moving on, the government of Egypt, the European Union and Germany officially launched a program towards a holistic approach to labor migration governance and labor mobility in North Africa, also known as THAM. This was launched in Egypt in coordination with the implementing agencies, the ILO, the IOM and the GIZ. The program, with a total funding of 30 million euros, is in line with several jointly funded programs by the Emergency Trust Fund for Stability and addressing the root causes of irregular migration and displaced persons in Africa. THAM draws on a holistic approach to labor migration governance and labor mobility on a regional level with a total duration of 36 months. And in more news, Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Mashat, met with the Dr. Dina Saleh, the Regional Director for the Near East, North Africa and Europe at the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, of the United Nations, to discuss expanding projects and outlining future areas of cooperation to enhance food and nutrition security and support resilient livelihoods. The minister noted projects will align with the ministry's principles of economic diplomacy to strengthen the global partnerships for effective development. These principles include regularly organizing multi-stakeholder platforms to ensure all projects between development partners are streamlined and effectively coordinated, adopting a consistent global partnership narrative, people and projects, and persons and purpose, P and P and P. And the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has maintained its growth forecast for Egypt, saying it will be the only country in the Middle East and the Central Asian department to experience positive economic growth this year. We have the details.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, declared Monday that Egypt is the only country in the Middle East and North African region that will achieve a positive economic growth in the FY 2020-21 by the virtue of the economic reform program undertaken by the state since 2016. The reforms are embodied in currency floating and gradually lifting energy subsidies, among others. The IMF said that Egypt's growth rate in FY 2020-21 is expected to drop to 2%. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, with speculations it will rebound to 6.5% in FY 21-22. The IMF issued a report in August on the files related to Egypt's obtaining of an emergency financial assistance of $2.77 billion to meet the urgent balance of the payments need stemming from the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. In a report, the IMF asserted that Egypt's strong ability to fulfill its external obligations, adding that improving and developing the social safety net remains an important priority for the Egyptian government, as it examines opportunities to expand social support to include more vulnerable groups. The fund also underlined positive and important moves taken by the government within the framework of shoring up the country's economy, controlling public finances and reducing public debts as part of its successful economic reform program. The report said that Egypt is committed to the public expenditure review that covers social protection, health and education programs. The fund said that Egypt is proceeding with the structural reforms that include taking measures to improve the efficiency of resource allocation by enhancing transparency and accountability, strengthening competition and improving governance.
And for more news, Egypt witnessed high tourism turnouts from different nationalities this week, including batches from France, England, Spain, Ukraine and Belarus. According to Egypt's Ministry of Tourism, tourists are flocking to Luxor from Hurghada as part of one-day trips to enjoy visiting various archaeological sites. The head of domestic tourism sector at the Egyptian General Authority for Tourism Promotion explained that since the resumption of the tourism movement in Egypt after the coronavirus pandemic, tourists visit archaeological sites and coastal sites on a regular basis. The Egyptian Museum in Tahrir also received a high number of tourist groups coming from several countries, including Uzbekistan, Ukraine and Kazakhstan. That wraps up the news making the headlines. Now we leave you with a report on the inauguration of the second edition of the Turathna exhibition for heritage products. Let's take a look.